I want to get something off my chest, and it's been really bothering me the past few days. It's actually been bothering me ever since I watched the UFC countdown that came out last week. The whole countdown was built around this whole narrative that, you know, South Africa, Africa, real African, non-real African. It's just an absolute mess, this whole situation. And now you've got fighters coming out saying like, oh, dricus is I don't really want to say it in the first minute of this video because I will get shadow banned. I'll say it in 30 seconds though. Look, I've made videos on this before, and the fact that Izzy has taken this narrative so to heart is really frustrating, and also this narrative that he was in this poor slum growing up is just completely false, and we all know it's false. He did it as well when he fought Alex Pereira. He said that you know, the Brazilians will relate to him more than Pereira because they know what Izzy's been through, despite Pereira literally, he was living in the jungle, then he moved to the favelas for a better life, you know. And I think it happens quite often with Izzy when he feels like he's not connecting with the fans. He decides to throw out like this whole African poverty thing, and essentially says you're not a real African unless you had to uproot and leave your home, which is just absolutely ridiculous, you know. Izzy grew up with servants and stuff. He didn't have to uproot and leave his home. From what I've read and from what I've done my research on, the reason they left Nigeria was because his father got I believe his father was an accountant, and he got the opportunity to leave Nigeria, and it would allow his children to have more money, essentially, or not more money, more of a private education, and obviously an education that would come from a more international school rather than Nigeria. So obviously they moved because their kids would have more opportunity. There's 5 kids in the Adesanya family. I think he's got brothers and sisters, but Izzy's the oldest. And in the UFC countdown, or the first episode of Embedded, he was saying about how, you know, oh, look at this, a 2% increase in my pay, and now I'm on $38,000 a year. You know, there's a lot of people that would absolutely kill to make $38,000 a year, especially as he was only 23 years old at the time. You know, it's an absolute shambles and a piss take. God, I probably shouldn't say this, but my mum currently only earns about 13 to 14, 15,000 a year, you know. There's been times where I've been working more hours a week than her, and I've been making more money than her as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old at the time. I'm obviously now 20 years old, and now I'm able to travel around and train in different places and make these videos, which I love to do, and that's just because of how hard I've worked, you know. And I've never even made close to $38,000 a year, you know. I'm probably more in the 13,000, 14, 15,000 a year as well, you know. And I've saved enough to be able to do this, and obviously I'm gonna have to go back to regular work. But look, this whole narrative that he's this hard done by, you know, he had servants that would bathe him, servants that would cook and clean for him. There's videos of this, and now obviously he's not feeling connected to the fans or his roots, so now he's saying, oh, you know, I know what poverty feels like, and he's come up with this narrative that he had to uproot and leave Nigeria because of the bad upbringing. You know, it's just lies. It's all bullshit. It's all lies. You know, the man is an absolute idiot. He's a manipulative prick. He's an absolute scumbag of earth. And I think he's going to get squashed on the weekend, you know. I mean, I respect everything Israel Adesanya's done in the sport. I respect how hard he works and how disciplined he has been in his career and how active he was as a champion. It was good to see the most active champion ever in UFC history. I really appreciated that as a fan, I must admit. But there's a point now where I am just done with the cringy theatrics and the lies and the, like, I've said it before, the guy doesn't know his own identity. The guy has no clue if he's Chinese, if he's Nigerian, if he's from New Zealand, you know. All of a sudden, as soon as these comments start being brought up, oh, he puts the accent on again, he starts talking about like his heritage. All the UFC countdown was talking about his heritage, and it was just like, this is not what fighting is about. This is just a bit soy, and he's taken a little inch, the real African comment, and he's ran a mile with it. And Francis Ngannou has not said anything. It's just been Izzy and Usman, and Izzy and Usman are the ones that don't feel massively connected to their roots, and that's why it's been taken in such a big way, such a big deal, and they're selling a fight based on this. And in my opinion, Israel Adesanya sees this as a bit as, look, I'm black, so I'm more African than you. That's what he sees it as. Dricus's point is, I'm born in Africa, I reside in Africa, I've always fought out of Africa, and the belt will be coming home to Africa where I live. It won't be going home to New Zealand and travelling to Africa for a world tour. You know, that's not how this is working. He's showing other South Africans that you can win a UFC title out of Africa. That's all the comment was. And it's respect to him. He's showing people that you don't have to leave. You know, even if Africans say, oh my God, is he our African champion? However, I don't feel like I can win a belt out of Africa now, because he didn't actually do it from Africa. He was in New Zealand when he won it, you know, and he's got a New Zealand accent, you know, and you know, is he making comments like, oh, he, you know, he might not know where he's from, but I'm gonna show him who he is. Like, what does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's just like a cringy mic drop moment that no one cares about. You're just embarrassing yourself. The fans have turned on you because you're a scumbag. Yes, you're set for life, but the UFC seems to like these absolute arseholes that are running the sport and getting everything on their terms, and it's just ridiculous in my opinion, to be honest. But, you know, who am I to say anything? Because it's not my place. I'm just a little MMA YouTuber that tries making good content for you. And also things like saying, you know, you're not a true African unless you've had to flee your homeland. I mean, that is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Obviously, some areas of Africa, you need to get out to there to find a better life, to have better opportunities, and that's one of the horrible things about not coming from a first world country. But it does not make you any less African. And, you know, Dricus obviously was born in an area where you could have a stable job. His family did have a stable jobs, and they did his thing. And then Izzy's saying, you know, oh, he's privileged. I mean, mate, you had servants, and then because your family wanted you to have a better GCSE qualification, oh, we'll move to New Zealand. Your dad was an accountant, you know, like, you have no right and no legs to stand on saying you have to leave your country to be a true African. You're only saying that because you're not a true African. In your heart, you don't feel connected with your roots, you know. I mean, I hate saying that, but the only reason you would switch it like that and to say, oh no, you need to leave Africa to be a true African is because you need that to convince yourself. And look, that's a very dangerous playing with fire thing to say. You can't really be saying that. That's not appropriate, and that's not healthy, and that's causing a really bad negative racial thing around this whole build-up. And Dricus is not even mentioning it anymore. Dricus is saying, look, the guy's gonna say what he says, you know. But in my opinion, you're dividing a nation that has already had so much history with division between South Africa and then the rest of Africa, you know. And in South Africa, there's a lot of white versus black things going on, and I hate to speak about this on YouTube, and I don't want to speak about this on YouTube. However, I think it's disgusting and sick the way that this fight has been marketed, even by the UFC standpoint, talking about, oh, you know, his comments about being black and white and stuff, when that was not the case. That was just completely out of context and not at all what was said. By real African champion, he was meaning, you know, he was having a little jab at Izzy, because obviously Izzy was in his division. Izzy was the champion at this time. You know, let's see who the real African champion is. You know, it's one of these things that can be taken so many ways, but Izzy took an inch and he ran a mile with it. I think he's manipulative. I think he's preying on this pity narrative of, oh, I had to leave Africa, when you're now going back on things you told us in 2018. When he first joined the UFC, he did multiple interviews saying, look, I'm privileged, I've had a great life, I had servants and housemaids growing up. And now, because he's losing the connection with the fan and his roots, he's saying, oh, you know, I grew up really badly, I had to flee my home country. You know how pissed off I would be if I was Francis Ngannou right now? I'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Your parents moved country because they could afford to, they did it safely, and it was so you could get a proper GCSE qualification, a more international qualification. Francis Ngannou tried 4 times by walking across the desert and stowing away on a boat to get to France with a load of other people, starving, not eating for days and days and weeks. And you're saying you had to flee your country, you arrogant scumbag, looking for the petty vote, trying to convince yourself that you're this true Nigeria champion, which you're not. I'm sorry, man. I know I'm nothing to you, and I know this video will never find you, but I just want to put all this out on the table and check yourself, please, because you are a scumbag, mate. You are an absolute arrogant piece of work. You touch your dog. You are just an absolute weirdo going on about how you got bullied in Nigerian school. No wonder you got bullied. Some people in life deserve to be bullied, and I know that's a terrible, horrible thing to say, but if I grew up around you and you had housemaids and all this and you were talking as if, you know, you were hard done by, I'd want to kick the shit out of you. Just be honest. Just say you lived an incredibly blessed life, and however you don't agree with what he said. However, he is the first champion to reside in Africa. He's the first champion to show people you can do it out of Africa. In your mind, this is about being black and white. You absolute prick. You absolute scumbag. I hope he squashes you. And people say, oh look, he's in your head. I got a comment on my last video saying, oh, the only reason you're picking Dricus is because you're a hater. No. It's because I think Dricus has the perfect style to beat him, and I want Dricus to beat him. It's not because I hate Izzy, it's because I think Dricus is going to win. I do hate Izzy, but I also think Dricus will win, so it's just a win-win situation. Scumbags, man. And I know no one's going to watch this video all the way through, and I know no one's going to believe me when I say any of this, but it's all factual, it's all true. Fuck you, Israel Adesanya. I don't care about you, but I want people to understand, as mature young men, this is not correct, what he's been saying and how he's been acting. It's absolutely sly, it's scummy, it's ridiculous, and I hope he gets flattened. I hope he shows everyone the man he really is. And I hope that after he loses this time, we don't have to hear from him ever again. Because I think if he loses, he'll just say, you know what, peace out. I'm set for life. I'm gonna just go chill, live a nice life, be happy, travel the world, and that's what he deserves because he's a phenomenal champion. However, his personality is honestly one of the most dire and horrible I've ever experienced listening to in my life. And saying $38,000 a year is pathetic, and he only got a 2% increase in pay, so he's going to go become a fighter. I mean, that's the you know, you're well educated. You had the opportunity to be earning pretty much 40 grand a year at 23 years old. Yeah, and that's a man who grew up in poverty with nothing, you know. Alex Pereira was an alcoholic who worked in a bike shop, a mechanic shop, then decided to take up kickboxing to potentially break out of this horrible cycle he was in to get his mind back on track. That's coming from nothing to something. You've come from something to another thing to, oh, you know, this is cool, at least I can afford to go and do this. And fair play, you've managed to do it with a very boring point style fighting, but you've poisoned this fight week. You touch your dog. You make this about race. You're an absolute weirdo. I'm surprised the people around you haven't said anything. I think Eugene Behrman just ignores it. I'm surprised Dan Hooker hasn't said anything. I'm surprised Kai Kara France hasn't said anything. But you know why? Because if they said anything, you'd make it about being black or white. See you later, folks. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, give me your thoughts on this matter. See you later, Izzy. Good luck this weekend, brother.